Thank you very much. This was a great meeting. There's tremendous unity in the Republican Party. We want to see borders. We want to see strong military. We want to see money not wasted all over the world. We don't want to see Russian ships right off the coast of Florida, which is what they are right now. That's unthinkable. We want to see just success for our country. And we don't have success right now. We have inflation that's killing everybody. We have levels of inflation that nobody's seen for, they say 42 years, they say 53 years, and they say 75 years. I would say probably all of them are wrong. Probably we've never seen levels like this before. And we're going to end that. We're going to bring back our jobs. We're going to bring back common sense to government. We're going to have strong borders, and we're going to have people come into our country, but they're going to come in legally. They're not going to pour in from prisons all over South America and all over the world. And it's not just South America, by the way. It's all over the world. And we're not going to have them pour in from mental institutions, which is where they're coming from, large numbers, and large numbers are terrorists. And we're not going to have this. So what's happening to our country is of great concern to the group of people standing alongside of me. And I just wanted to say that we have great unity. We have great common sense. A lot of very smart people in this room, and a lot of people that love our country. They love our country beyond just about all else. And the only thing that maybe supersedes it is their family and maybe their faith in certain instances, and that's very nice. But they want this country to be great again, and we're going to make it great again. And so I just want to thank the Republican Senate, and I want to thank also the House. We met, as you know, with the full House, Republican House today, and we had a tremendous meeting with them also, and there's great unity. Very similar, different topics, actually, but not that different. And there's one thing in common. We want to make America great again. We want to make our country great again. We're a nation that's in decline. We're a declining nation. We're a nation that is being laughed at all over the world. We have a leader that's being laughed at all over the world. And we're going to turn it around. We're going to turn it around fast. The polls are looking like they're very strongly for us. And no matter where you look, in fact, a lot of states that people thought weren't in play are very strongly in play. Some were actually leading in. But we have to get elected. We have to take this beautiful place, and we have to make it really something very special again. Right now, it's not special. Right now, it's being scorned and being used as an example of when they look at the crime on the streets, when they look at all of the problems that we have, they're using us as a bad example of democracy. And they're getting away with murder, and we're not going to let it happen. So I just want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank everybody here. You're all either elected or you're going to be elected again and reelected, and I'm with every one of you, and you know that. I'll be with you always. And thank you very much for inviting me, and we're going to have great success. I think we're going to have a tremendous election. It's November 5th is very important, but we really start much earlier than that. You have North Carolina. As an example, you have North Carolina September 6th. You have Pennsylvania starts on September 22nd. These are things different from the old days. We had Election Day, and you had paper ballots, and you had voter ID. Unfortunately, maybe someday we'll get back to that. But you don't have that right now. But this is an outstanding group of people. I'm with them 1,000%. They're with me 1,000%. We agree just about on everything, and if there isn't, we work it out. And I've had a really great relationship with just about everybody here, and just about all of the senators. And if it wasn't fantastic, it gets worked out. And we have one thing in mind, and that's making our country great. So thank you all very much. We appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
And the former president there, for the first time on the Hill since the deadly insurrection, meeting with GOP lawmakers, his goal, seeking unity He was very straightforward, calm at the mic. Actually didn't go on very long talking about borders, military, inflation, citing some things about those coming across the border. We'll fact check that in just a moment. But we've got our whole panel with us. We've got Rachel Babe, Jay O'Brien up on the Hill, also our Avery Harper, our deputy political director. Rachel Scott, also our senior congressional correspondent. She's just outside the room there. As Trump leaves that room, she might be able to grab him, possibly. We'll wait for a moment to see if that happens. But let's take it, Jay and Rachel, there on the Hill. We probably should fact check first what he said about those coming across the border. He says this every time about making the border safer. Of course, he wants to do that, but he always throws out a very general statement about all the terrorists coming across the border, the prisoners coming across the border and committing all this crime here in our country, which is simply not true. So why don't we fact check that for a moment, guys, and then we'll kind of dip into his brief remarks.
And I also think it's worth, when you talk about immigration and the former president, to mention the fact that he's standing among Senate Republicans. A number of the Senate Republicans in that room backed immigration reform that one of their own, James Lankford, negotiated with Democrats. And then, of course, when the product of those negotiations gets released, it's former President Trump who turns against it. Republicans have said as much, that in their view, he turned against it because he wanted to use immigration as a campaign issue. And then, of course, him turning against it, this coalition of Republicans who had come together and believed that this was their moment for immigration reform completely shatters. And so there are Republicans in the House and Senate who believe that the fact that you didn't get that immigration bill passed this time around was largely, almost entirely, due to Trump's opposition to it. So when you talk about a fact check, it's worth pointing that out as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's right, Jay. That is exactly why he killed that bill, so he could stand up on a podium surrounded by Republicans and make this, like you said, a campaign issue. I mean, James Lankford, who negotiated that deal with Democrats, to this day says it was a mistake for his own party to reject that bill. Obviously, Joe Biden is taking steps with executive action right now. But look, there are things that lawmakers can do that the executive branch cannot. And, you know, Trump, he wants to talk about the border and the situation down there. The reality is he was the one who killed a lot of these solutions from going forward. So it's important to keep that in mind, Kira.
Thanks, guys. Avery, your thoughts. He didn't really delve deeply into anything except for those few comments about immigration. He just talked about stronger borders, stronger military. He did reference the Russian ships off the coast of Florida right now that are taking on those training exercises, says that that would never happen if he were president. And he also talked about inflation. He says killing everybody. Your thoughts?
Right. This was not a deep policy speech. This was a very brief address to a room of senators who support him. I do think there's one part of the speech that actually really stuck out to me. He said that the U.S. is being looked at around the world as a bad example of democracy. And to me, that stuck out because back in May, we asked in our ABC News Ipsos poll about the issues that Americans thought were the most important as they consider who to vote for in November's election. And 76% of Americans said that protecting democracy was very important to them as they weighed who to vote for. And when we looked at who they trusted in order to protect democracy, it was actually even between former President Trump and President Biden, which indicates that there are very different viewpoints on what protecting democracy looks like. And so for some folks who are going to be watching those remarks, that message is going to resonate. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to garner some of these independent votes or those who may be dissatisfied with President Biden. But for his base, I think the message of America looking like a fool on the world stage or looking like a bad example of democracy is one that could mobilize voters.